So I thought I'd try something a little bit different today. For the past 10, 11 years, I've been taking care of a private library that mostly concentrates on metaphysical, occult, spiritual books, a lot of them out of print. And over the years, I've gone through pretty much every book in this library. Sometimes books will pop out at me that are hidden behind some other book and I never knew about that were there. But over the years, I've kind of narrowed it down to about 8 books that really talk to me. And I kind of cycle through these 8 books over time. I just read them over and over again or read portions of them. What I do is that when I wake up in the morning, I will read one of these books. It's kind of like a morning devotional. And then I do that once in the afternoon, and then I do it once before I go to bed. So it's pretty much like prayer, like, a traditional, in other religions, they just kind of, every day they remind themselves of the absolute or the essence or whatever you want to call it, God. Because the days are so busy in our mind, we get so lost in our mind, in our intellect, that it becomes clouded, and we need to center ourselves again. But doing that right when you wake up kind of sets a tone for the rest of your day. So, anyway, one of these books is this book here called The Opening of the Way by Isha Schwaller Delubicz. And she was the partner of Renee Schwaller Delubicz. And you can look them up and read about them, but they really speak to me, and I feel allied to them. It's not just these books. The books that Renee Schwaller Delubicz wrote too are very good. It's a different style. His is a more male style. It's more to the point and incisive and kind of cuts with a scalpel to the point, while Isha is more feminine and she's more maternal and kind of seems like she's not as hard edged as Renee. They're both just as loving and just as altruistic and just as selfless in what they're giving out. They didn't receive a lot of acclaim during the time, and there's different reasons for that. And maybe in another video I can go into the whole, I don't know if you'd call it controversy around the Delubitzes, but they spent 12 years in Egypt where they kind of came up with a whole new way of interpreting the hieroglyphics and the design of the temples, and basically had this idea that the temples were not tombs. They were not created in deference to a certain pharaoh. They were places of initiation, and they reflected kind of universal harmonics or universal principles. Um, so this book is really kind of a summation of all their ideas, and they looked at themselves as one person. Her and Renee kind of, like I'm saying, there's a feminine and a masculine presentation going on here, and she's kind of the feminine part of that, and this book has really helped me to crystallize a lot of ideas that I've had from other books that I've read, and all these books kind of, they come from different directions, but they kind of reflect the same things. So I'm gonna just read a couple of passages from this, and we can kind of look at this as a devotional. And I would like to do this in a kind of on a live stream thing with different books that I'm into, and have people read or have people give their ideas and ask questions about or comment on what we're reading. So we're reading from the Opening of the Way, and we're on page 80 of the Opening of the Way. I don't know if you can find a PDF of this that you don't have to pay for online, but I have multiple videos where I just recite different chapters of this book on my channel, and and I'll put together a playlist of those videos that you can go to if you find that this resonates with you at all. But this is just one part that I just kind of opened the book and thought resonated with me, and had some things that kind of relate to what's going on in the world right now. But mostly it's personal and kind of a self-help for you. These books are not they're not boilerplate stuff like Chicken Soup for the Soul, and they're also not like deeply esoteric stuff that I wouldn't be able to present to you without a bunch of prerequisites that you wouldn't understand what I'm talking about. But it is deep, and it does get to the point, and I think it just kind of, there's a part of it that helps just the average layman in these spiritual matters and the occult, but also helps if you're really into it. It also kind of brings into focus a lot of things that might not have come into focus as much for you before. So we're just going to read a couple of about a page and a half from an essay called The Milieu in Opening of the Way. So it's page 80 and 81. And she starts off by saying, "But if your aim is to attain masterhood in knowledge, then illuminate one day of your life with the cold light of impersonal judgment. Observe the finer points of all your impulses. Excavate without pity and without excuses until you lay bare their roots and origins." So that's obviously that takes a lot of courage to be able to do that, and I try to do that every day. But your personal self is very deceptive, isn't it? And it keeps you from going into those dark corners that you really need to go. And sometimes maybe you're not ready to go into those dark corners, but life events will come along, people will come along into your life that force you into those dark corners. And it's good to look at it that way, as kind of illuminating those dark corners, instead of, oh my God, I'm in this horrible inky black depression place. It's more like you need to stand back from that and look at it from above and say, okay, there's a cloud passing over my sun right now, and that's part of the lesson, is to be able to stand over that and stand over your own personality and what you're presenting to the world, your actions, your selfishness, which is, selfishness. I've always been the kind of person that I'll give you the shirt off my back type guy, like a bum in the street. Like, I'll give them all my money, and I always saw myself that way, right? I'm like, I'm a really generous guy, but there's just these really subtle forms of selfishness that the more you get into this kind of, and the more you get into self-examination, the more you see these deeper levels of how you've been selfish with the other people in your life, and then selfish towards your real self too, or selfish towards the Christos in you, or your higher self. There's this old Christian meme or painting or picture that kind of, like your average church would kind of put out there, and it's a guy shooting up drugs, but Jesus is standing behind him, and he's got his arm over the addict's arm, and the guy's actually shooting up Jesus, and Jesus is in this like agony, right? And it's kind of like, when you hurt yourself like that, you're not just being selfish towards the people around you, you're being selfish towards Jesus too, right? Like he's feeling that pain, that you're turning away from that universal love. So I'll read on here. You will be surprised at times to recognize the signature of your ancestors in certain atavistic ways of behavior, learned or inherited from your family. Other impulses to which you have given moral value without examining their right to it will be shown up as mere habitual reflexes of mind or emotion. impressed upon you either by education or by the daily suggestion of your religious and social circumstances. So, by doing this self examination, you start to delineate between how you've been conditioned and then what is your true self? What is your, when you're feeling totally transparent and simplified, what is that true self? And are you living that? Are you letting that self shine through? Which is a really, man, is that difficult these days, right? Because would you be able to work if you were yourself? Like, I grew up with people telling me, in the 70s and 80s, just be yourself. And kind of, I always had this other voice that was like, are you serious? Because if I was really myself right now, like, I'd be getting in fights all the time, right? Like, you get to the point where you have to be deceptive to earn a living. I mean, it just gets worse and worse, right? With all the stuff. I mean, I just keep quiet now in those situations. I never, I always kind of knew like how to work this and everything, but even when I keep quiet, it's still, it's like they know. It's like they look at me and they know that I'm not buying it and that, or I'm above it. And I don't feel egotistical in any way in saying I'm above this. Okay? Like, I am above it. Like, all this political stuff and the binary political conservative liberal, like, is there anything wrong with saying like you're above this? There's nothing. Okay, it's just stupid and you're above it. But especially with the stuff that happened 5 years ago, it got to the point where I couldn't. I mean, you couldn't hold a job and be honest about stuff when it came to that, because the people in charge were so bought into this whole narrative, right? And so, like, working around that and working around how ignorant people are and how their cognitive dissonance, I mean, that just gets more and more difficult. And it's not just when it comes to work, it comes to when you are with your family. Like, that's a big one, right? Because like, as it says in there, these things, these family traits are ingrained in you. And it's not just these family traits, it's these family attachments. Okay? And believe me, I don't think any of you got it as bad as I do. Like, my whole family lives on the coast of California, and they're, to a person, just totally locked up in this binary thing. They've gotten all their boosters, even though they keep getting sick over and over again. I mean, the cognitive dissonance is intense. But I have these deep connections to these people. I have like this deep love for them for a bunch of reasons. It's like, in one way I'm a lot closer to my family than most people are, and in another way I'm very, very shut off from them. Like, there's things that I just cannot bring up. One trick, whether you're boomer politics obsessed family is on the right or on the left, one trick to get them to shut up is just to bring up Israel, because both of those groups of people, especially if they're boomers, they're just not like, that's it. Like, that's the end of the conversation, right? Because they're both just totally evil when it comes to that subject. Okay, we're not going to get into that. We're talking about spiritual, metaphysical stuff and how to help yourself here. You can see how the cerebral gets in the way. And that's one of the big points of this book, is that she calls it the infernal cerebral cinema. She has a bunch of different names for it, and it's just this constant chatter that's going on. And that's one of the big lessons of all these spiritual scriptures going back thousands of years. That's one of the main points that I read in all of these different books is like, shut it down, and like shut down that voice and get good at shutting down that voice. Vomit your thinking, like it says in the Tao. Vomit your thinking. Vomit that voice. Just shut that down, man. And I could make a whole nother video about my whole experience with that, and how it does, the more you practice it, the more you practice that silence, the better it gets. The easier it gets. And it's in that silence, and it's not just the chatter, it's the mind images that you got to get past too. Because you'll get a thought and you'll get hooked into that thought, and then your brain is just flowing down the stairs like a slinky into, all of a sudden you're off-roading big time, and you're far away from where you should be, which is what this whole book is about being concentrated in that true self, being able to concentrate that, being able to rest on it, not be stressfully, by power of will trying to concentrate on that thing, but just being at rest in that person. And one of the big obstacles to that is self-doubt. That's another thing that's just repeated in all these books, that the biggest enemy to the biggest obstacle, or one of the biggest obstacles to the realization of your true self, or your self-realization, is self-doubt, is your doubt, and your lack of self-confidence, and your lack of knowledge that it's your birthright to feel this, to feel this, to feel like yourself, and to feel a part of everything, and to feel like you're a part of nature. You're not just a part of nature, but because you're a human, you're above nature, that you're standing above it, and you can work with it and work along with it. And that's what being on the right side, on the right hand path, is working in harmony with that, and trying to bring that harmony to the outside chaotic world that just seems to get more and more chaotic. I think we're at a kind of a turning point, at a juncture here, where we're starting to work our way back up from the bottom, and so we're still working real hard, and it's by our own effort that we're going to start moving our way back up here, hopefully. So let's read on here. Both these classes of impulse are foreign to you and prevent your true nature from manifesting itself. Okay, so the signature of your ancestors, the family signature, and then what you've been given from the outside, the educational and the religious and social circumstances, which we could do a whole nother video on that too, and I could just extrapolate on that all day. And that's kind of what I do in the cultural alchemy videos. I guess I talk about the media influence and how that affects your social influence. But these things prevent your true nature from manifesting itself. These are external things. These are external images that are impressing themselves upon your nature, and you're not looking inside and seeing that light coming from behind, that is your true light, and that, yeah, it's difficult to integrate into this world, right? I mean, would you become a vigilante if you did that? Okay, so let's keep going here. A third class is your own. Observe it, therefore, but do not judge it. It consists of passionate impulses, marks of your deepest nature, which can reveal to you by their analogies with the same forces in nature, in planets, animals, plants, and metals, the characteristics of your true being, and help you to identify yourself with it. Okay, so that's, like I said, she kind of gets into the deeper occult stuff and the correspondences and the analogies with the metals and the planets and all that. And that's, if you're not ready for that, that's totally fine. My opinion is never push yourself into trying to understand this stuff. Just let it come along naturally. And the thing you need to concentrate on is that true self, is that kingdom of heaven within you. Okay. And I mean, that is really what Jesus was saying. It's like, concentrate on this one thing, this stillness, this eternal in you, and these things will come along naturally. So that's gets into motive, right? There's a lot of people that get into this kind of stuff because they want to do willpower, law of attraction stuff that you're going to end up tripping yourself if you're not if you're coming from the wrong motive. All that stuff, it has to be from the right motive, or it's black magic, straight up. You can't have a selfish motive when you venture into that. And also, to be able to do all that stuff, it takes a long time to understand what you're actually doing. I don't want to get too off into that. But the part she says here about observe it, therefore, but do not judge it. So don't judge. Don't start being critical of that. Just observe it. Try and get in touch with that essence of yourself through the silence, through getting to that silence and shutting down the chatter. And there's going to be a critical voice, more so for some than others. I grew up with people criticizing me all the time. So this is always been a difficult thing for me. I always have this critical voice, and it's going away very slowly. I'm grinding it away, but it's still, like, it'll come back with a lot of force when I'll take it on, and then the wave like comes back. The self-doubt, the self-criticism, these things not good. So observe it, therefore, but do not judge it. It consists of passionate impulses. So this is another thing that she really gets into, and also Renee gets into, is that these natural functions that you have are the representatives of universal functions, of universal principles that, as she says here, you can look at as being the symbols of those are found in planets, in metals, in colors, in sounds. But what I'm gonna relate it to lust, okay? Because I think that's one of the as far as passionate impulses, like that's the one that kind of comes to mind a lot, right? And I think a lot of people, especially a lot of guys my age, really struggle with this because at least I was raised with this if it feels good, do it mentality. And I was also raised with just like half naked women on billboards all around me. And I was also raised that any kind of sex is healthy, that it's kind of like this biological function, like going to the bathroom, and you need to do it to stay healthy for your physical health. Like it's like eating, or it's just this when and so that leads into the objectification of women for men, and of men by women, just to the objectification of people and looking at them as sex robots, that or like a freaking urinal that you're using for a biological function. And of course that's not good. That's not a good way to look at it. And I was, the environment I grew up in, okay, like this is Southern California in the 70s and 80s, so it's probably a lot worse than if you grew up in the Bible Belt or the Midwest or something. But even when you turned on TV, it's just beer commercials and as a real little kid, cigarette commercials, and just everything was sold with sex, right? It was just constant all the time. And but anyway, the lust thing, so there's we know that there's lust and then there's love, right? So that lust is, you know, it's a physical thing, and it's a deep physical thing. It's a subtle physical thing. It's not just, wow, she's hot, you know, let's go have sex. It's there's more subtle kind of psychic things going on there too. But then there's love, and there's a union, and this impulse towards sexual union is actually representative. And there's another essay in here called "The Problem of Sex" that really gets into this. This need for sexual union is a symbol of our need to our need for union with the real self, with the core of of our unity with all living things. Because we feel so divorced from that at this point. We've become so materialized that our this deep need that we're not recognizing of unity with God, if you want to call it that, or the essence. We're so distant from that. And when we do, sometimes it flashes through and you're like, bam, you know, you'll hear a song, or you'll have a memory, or you know, you'll fall in love. And it's like whammo, you get this big flash of like what that unity really is, because we are, whether our brain has taken us away from that or not, we are in that unity all the time. It's just about us kind of like coming from up here down to here into our heart, and realizing that unity. So in short, this need for sex and this distortion called lust is really just a distortion, a distorted symbol of our need for union. And then that union is a creative place, right? When we do have that union with somebody, with the other sex, that union creates something, and it creates something beautiful. And we can do that within ourselves. We, you know, if we unite with that and surrender to that instead of our own selfish attachments, there is a creation that happens from that we become a force of positive creation. I hope that you understand what I'm talking about here. I want to go through that problem of sex essay with you too, because she states it a lot more succinctly than I just did. Okay, this one is very interesting. This paragraph right here. The atavistic tendencies, which are the signature of a family or a race, are the rhythm or type imprinted by contagion, and as it were by a sort of imitation, on the cells of the body and all the corpuscles of the blood, and the blood, as vehicle of this animal soul, transfuses its characteristics and superficial tendencies from generation to generation until they are effaced by new impressions. This effect will be the deeper, the narrower is the circle in which the family or race is living. Okay, now, so the first time I read this, I read it over and over again. And just that paragraph opened up this whole new world to me. Because I had been trying to figure out a certain group of people that we all, anybody who goes down this path, any great thinker has all kind of questioned this group of people that kind of had this religion enforced upon them. Okay, so how do I get into this? So let's say you have this group of people, they have a priesthood that that enforces a certain belief system on them, and then keeps that circle very tight by making rules about the kinds of food they can eat and how their food is prepared. This is one example, how their food is prepared so that they're not able to sit and eat with other groups of people. They also tell this group of people that they're separate from all these other groups of people and that they're chosen over these other groups of people. And they kind of ghettoize this group of people over time. And this effect happens over thousands of years. Now, in the actual religion that they're imposing on these people itself, there are these deep truths contained in that religion so that they are able to, when they are able to access the deeper parts of this group of people through these truths. You wouldn't accept a religion if it didn't have deep truths within it. So they kind of they're spiritually hooking these people with these very deep truths. Some of these truths about their actual evolution and the evolution of humanity at large, like we see in the book of Genesis, it's a big allegory, but within that allegory there's very deep truths about how humanity evolved on Earth. And there's also, just kind of basic moral things that they're going to hook into these people's psyches through this religion. And they also do it through trauma, getting everybody on the same frequency through different traumas, like circumcision, for instance. So basically they're kind of psychically cordoning this group of people, not just psychically but physically, through things like the food laws and telling them that they are separate. Now, you do this over thousands of years, and this is going to become ingrained in the heredity, especially because they're keeping the procreation within a tight circle. They're marrying off, they're doing arranged marriages, they're only marrying within that race of people, and they're even doing uncle-niece marriages, just so they're distilling these spiritual beliefs. I don't know if I'd call them spiritual beliefs, but this kind of, I don't even know if I'd call it an ethnic survival strategy. I think it's really a slave master system that they're imposing on these people. And so this first group of people, this first group of Hebrews is being enslaved under this Levite priesthood. They've created these people that are totally beholden to them, and they're also getting them into situations where another way of cordoning them from the outside population is by telling them that all those people hate them, okay, and getting them into situations where those people retaliate against them to enforce this separation from the rest of the world. What I'm really trying to get through here is the tightness of the group through the family marriages, and through the rules that I just outlined. But this going on for the past 6,000 years, which also happens to be the duration that we've been in Kali Yuga for. So you can kind of look at this whole phenomena of this group of people as a symptom of Kali Yuga, or the Iron Age, this kind of dark age that we're in right now. So they are at once the victims and the victimizers. They're the slave masters and the slaves. Now, they're not the only group of people like that. I mean, you could look at the loyalist community in Northern Ireland. That's also not for as long at all, but for the past 600 years or something that has been this very tight group of people that has been told everybody outside of the cordon of their community hates them. That's always under assault. That they're always being threatened with being physically hurt or kicked out of their homes, and they're also breeding with each other. Not quite as tightly as the group I just talked about, but they're also breeding with each other. So there's a shared mentality that's reinforced through genetics and heredity. Okay, so that group, it probably wouldn't take as long to have new imprints put upon that group and get them to kind of change the way they are. I'm not saying that they have to change the way they are. In fact, the way the loyalists have dealt with this kind of immigration invasion into Northern Ireland is pretty admirable to me. But you can look at this other group that, I mean, they've tried to deal with these guys in Russia, in England, in a bunch of different countries in a million different ways, by placating them, by giving them their own land, by, just, and it never works, right? And they have very distinct traits. And so it would take, because it's been going on so long, and because it's a spiritual thing, because it's a religious thing, it's coming from a very deep place. It's like that Levitical priesthood got into this very central, deep place within these people's psyches, that it's going to be very, very, very hard to uproot that and to get rid of. It's not going to be something that just happens overnight. It's going to be something where these people have to accept that they need to change, that they can't keep this cycle going on over and over again. They have to accept that first of all, and then there's just going to be a long period where somehow these traits are kind of dissolve themselves within them. So we kind of off-roaded there from the self-help spiritual thing, but do you understand what I'm saying about this? That when a priesthood gets involved and they're hooking into you with these ideas, with these deep spiritual ideas that you might not even be aware of what they're doing, that they know more about your subconscious than you do. And so this is really a matter of sorcery, of black magic, that's being enforced on these people. And this definitely isn't the only priesthood that does this. I mean, I could get into Roman Catholicism and the Vatican and all that, but I mean, kind of is the same kind of group of people. But I mean, cults, they do the same thing, but I think you understand kind of what I'm saying here. I don't want to leave it on this, so we're going to read a little bit more here. We want to stay positive here when we're talking about this stuff. We got to stay positive. Got to stay positive. I know it's really hard. I know it's really difficult right now, but we got to stay positive. So she goes on here. The confirmations of family character, though they may be brought out or hidden by relationships with the world outside, have been ingrained by successive generations and cannot be removed except by length of time or violent rupture. Immigrants transplanted into a race and traditions radically different from their own often show greater flexibility of habit and judgment and are often readier for the acceptance of new ideas. So, people that kind of escape from that cordoned off zone or have, a bunch of different life experiences that aren't just within this one community have greater flexibility. I mean, this is kind of an obvious thing. Sometimes I think I have too much flexibility because I've just had more variety of dynamic life experiences than anybody I've ever met. And it gets a little confusing sometimes. But I think you can see what she's saying here, that, somebody who makes a radical change in their life, goes to a new country. It's kind of like it loosens them up from that whole thing. One who looks indulgently on the violent temper he has inherited or smiles to recognize in his mirror, some gesture familiar in his grandfather or father, should rather try to break these chains of servitude and give attention to the grand object of his journey, which is his own essence, which is his own self-realization, that is beyond all this stuff. It's beyond the nation, it's beyond the race, it's beyond the religion, all these things that have come to you from outside or over time in your heredity. This is a fact. Okay, we're not born without these. In Sanskrit, they're called skandhas. It's kind of like characteristics that you're born with, and you can call them genetics or DNA or whatever. But I definitely, in researching my own family, I've seen, even going back, a couple hundred years, I see patterns that have emerged within my family. Some not bad patterns, but and some, but what she's saying here is not whether they're good or bad. These are symptoms of existence. It's not the real you. It's like a leaf on the tree. Like you're actually the trunk of the tree, and these are kind of like a leaf, falls off after a while, and it doesn't matter. Like the real you is the trunk of the tree. For the great mass of humans, family, country, and religious denomination are an indispensable refuge. But for those who desire to take the narrow way and attain the highest of human possibilities, the gospel has shown the unconditional requirement. If any man hate not his father and mother and wife and children, he cannot be my disciple. And that's from Luke 14:26. Something that people get hung up on, right? They don't understand that reverends and priests kind of stay away from that because they themselves don't understand what's being said here. And she goes on to explain in a more succinct way than I probably could what is meant by that. So she says, the word hate does not mean in the gospel of love that fury which poisons modern society, but rather the exclusiveness which gives precedence to the conquest of reality over against all other social duties and relationships. Okay? So it doesn't mean being hostile towards your family or your friends or your nation or your race. It means making the point of your life, making the object of your journey, as she says here, the real you, which is going to end up helping those people, you being the real you, and vibing your Christos out there is going to help people more than you being some kind of artificial scab, like you being some kind of weird hologram, a superficial person. So as she says here, the hate it just means that to get to the real you, it's kind of like you got to get past those external attachments. Here again, the choice should be made wholeheartedly. If you are still attached to the fetters of memory, if you are still controlled by the instinct for continuation on earth, then you had better submissively accept the duties of your chosen world, support its customs and traditions even to excess, and observe them so intensely and so consciously that by contrast, your sense of eternity will be awakened and will summon you to the more sacred duty of the individual quest. So that's kind of something that I had to concentrate on and think about a lot. Like you dedicate yourself to one or the other, right? And she's saying here that you should dedicate yourself to that group that you've joined or accepted that you've joined so intensely that there's a reaction to that. Your real self reacts to that, and you can kind of see it in relief to that. I guess that's what she's saying. Which, okay. I guess the reason that that's more amorphous to me is because I'm not a joiner. I've never been a joiner. So we're almost done here. But if this longing for reality predominates already in you, then follow the commandments of liberation. Let go of all that the past has written in your substance. Seek your true name. Set yourself apart from the group soul of any group, and learn that you can serve your fellow travelers more effectively by becoming yourself a sun that shines with its own light, rather than by helping them to drag the old chains of slavery. So I think that speaks for itself, what she says right there. So that's going to be it for today. And I think that was pretty good. Like I said, I would like to do this on a live stream so that you can chat and you can make comments and you can ask me stuff. First, people have to actually watch this. But I did make 1,800 subscribers. I was at like 97 for a couple of months, and then I finally got the extra 3 in there. So we're at 1,800 now. It's a good round number. So that'd be awesome if we could get up to 2,000 subscribers, but hey, whatever. So yeah, I liked this. And I do this at meetings every week that I go to. We just read from a different scripture and then we discuss it. And that's kind of our thing. But I would love to do that with you if you enjoyed this. So yeah, have a great day. And yeah, keep attempting to be your real self. I know that that's difficult. I know how hard it is. Believe me. Okay, guys, I love you. Bye.